John Bolton is a veteran of D.C. politics who served under 4 Republican presidents, but the current White House resident took him to court to try to block the release of his new book about his time as National Security Advisor. It's called The Room Where It Happened. Please welcome Ambassador John Bolton. So, welcome to the View, sir. This book is chock full of all kinds of stories about you-know-who, and while they could not stop it from being published, they are threatening jail time because they say it still contains classified information. Is it possible that they could say today this is classified and tomorrow this is not? Do you worry about that, that they're going to change the classification of stuff while we're sitting here?
Yeah, look, there are no rules in the Trump administration. I can tell you that as somebody who's been involved in national security for a long time, I have a pretty good sense of what's classified and what's not. I never intended to reveal classified information that would damage the United States, and I went through a very arduous 4-month pre-publication review process to ensure that there was no classified information. And that's what the senior official at the NSC who reviewed the book with me concluded as well. So I feel very strongly about this. I know there are some headwinds coming, but it was never any part of my plan to release classified information. All I wanted to do was tell the truth about my experience in the Trump administration, and that apparently was too much for him.
Yes, and Bill Kristol said that you always tell the truth, just FYI. But this is my question, Mr. Ambassador. You were working for Trump for 17 months, and you write about all this horrible stuff you saw go on, and yet you never said a word until someone gave you $2 million to write a book about it. Now, you can redeem yourself in my eyes, if you even care. If you testify under oath about the unconstitutional and possible criminal behavior of this president, will you do that?
Well, look, there are a lot of possibilities coming up. I don't have any fear whatever of testifying under oath because I have set forth in this book as accurately as I can what I saw and heard. There's obviously controversy. I know you've commented on it yourself about the impeachment issue. I felt very strongly, and still do, that the way the impeachment process was carried out was needlessly partisan and doomed to failure. I didn't march to the same drummer as the Democratic House leadership, and I'm not required to. But my view was that if you're going to get this information out, it had to be done the right way, and the way they were proceeding, I think, would have guaranteed much of what I said in the book simply would have been ignored.
Ambassador, we'll talk about impeachment in a bit, but President Trump responded to your book with his usual eloquence on Twitter, and in just the past few days, he's called you a, quote, wacko, a liar, a washed-up creepster. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo kept it up, calling you a traitor, and former White House press secretary Sarah Sanders says you were drunk on power and acted like you were president. How do you respond to that? I mean, do you worry this book will just become this kind of he said, she said that doesn't really change anyone's mind?
No, I think it's a fair question, but I'm not worried about that. And with respect to the criticisms, I assumed they were coming. I believe that the president would respond the way he did, and I'm not going to answer in kind. I think this response and many other things he said degrade the office of the presidency. That's something that all Americans should prize. I long for the day when these 2-minute hates from the White House stop, but I don't think I improve the situation by answering the same way. I may be wrong on that, but that's the way I feel.
Ambassador Bolton, you're highly critical of everyone in the administration in your book, including Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo, but you reserve your harshest criticism for General Jim Mattis, including his reputation as a warrior scholar. You don't seem to go even a dozen pages without criticizing him, and this really surprised me. Why are you so critical of somebody as well-respected, beloved, and revered as General Mattis?
Well, first, let me say I don't criticize everybody in the administration, and I think if you read through the book fairly, you'll see that. With respect to Jim Mattis, let me say I don't in any way question his patriotism or his integrity. I question his performance as a bureaucrat, and I don't think he served his own interests. That to me was one of the most amazing things, that he kept making mistakes that impaired his ability to persuade the argument to adopt the positions he wanted to adopt, even when I wanted to agree with him. So, look, this is the American people never have the benefit of being around where these decisions are made, and I tried to explain how the ones I was involved in were made. People can read this book, they can draw their own conclusions, but unless you tell the full story, tell the full truth, people will never get a sense of how it actually works out.
Ambassador, and the book is dense. It's over 500 pages, and you write that you can't think of a single decision that President Trump made during your tenure with him that wasn't driven by his reelection. In one instance, you say that Trump was outright pleading with China's President Xi to help him win re-election by buying more U.S. crops, which would help him shore up support in the farm states. Trump's direct quote was pulled from the book during the government's review process. Was he offering anything to President Xi in return?
Yeah.
And what did you think when you say you heard the president flat out ask China, who we already know meddles in U.S. elections, for election help?
Yeah. Well, this particular episode is a good example of what the pre-publication review process that I went through does. And we had a lot of discussions on what I had originally written, and I finally agreed with the people conducting review to put in the language you see in the book. I'd be happy to go beyond that, except I made a deal. And the deal I made that was part of the clearance process was that this was the language that I would put forward. So I'm not going to vary from that. I think that would be wrong. It would violate the deal that I made. The point here, I think, is not that simply that, and I don't think you were implying this, but if I may, not simply that politics was much on Donald Trump's mind. It is for every president in almost every decision. That's the way it works. My point really is that in the Trump administration, it's the politics of re-election beyond almost anything else. I'm a conservative Republican. I have been since I was 15, ringing doorbells for Barry Goldwater. What I found in 17 months at the White House is the president is not a conservative Republican, and I think that's important for people to understand.
Well, but Ambassador Bolton, other White House officials who were in the room, including Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and Trade Advisor Peter Navarro, have denied your account, the account that you wrote about in the book.
Right.
You're aware of that?
Yeah, yes, I am, and I don't doubt that there will be disagreements about other anecdotes in the book. I think that's part of life. I was once upon a time a litigator, and you can find in trial 15 people can sit in the same meeting and have different recollections. What bothers me is that it was well understood on the Chinese side of the table exactly what Donald Trump was saying.